Okay, we are going to go ahead and get things underway this morning. Thank you all so much for joining us for our third session for Virtual College Bootcamp. Welcome. Thank you for being here on financial aid, scholarships, and money-saving tips for college. My name is Mrs. Edwards, and I am the Career Counselor and Scholarship Coordinator at both Atlee and Patrick Henry High Schools. And I am going to go ahead and let all of our wonderful panelists go and introduce themselves as well.
I'm April Corbin. I am the Career Counselor at Hanover High School and former Lee Davis High School, HCPS High School.
I'm Mila Spalding, and I am the GRAS representative at Patrick Henry.
I'm Karen Pettis-Walden, Director of Admissions at Reynolds Community College.
There, I'm Andrew Quinn. I'm the Assistant Director of Financial Aid at Reynolds Community College.
My name is Meredith Kane. I'm the Senior Financial Aid Technician at Reynolds Community College.
Is Keely on? Well, I'm Emily Martin, Assistant Director of Financial Aid at the University of Richmond.
Okay, well, thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate your time and being here, and we're excited to just share your wealth of information and knowledge with all of our attendees today, so thank you. Okay, we are going to just jump right into things, and the first thing that we are going to talk about are scholarships and different types of scholarships. So really, before we kind of, again, talk about scholarships, we think it's important that as a student, as a parent, especially as a student, that you really understand what are the types of scholarships out there. And then really you can kind of prioritize and think about, these are the scholarships that I want to focus on, or maybe this area. So we have merit-based scholarships, which are really based on academic achievement. And that could be that, but also demonstrated interest in any kind of arts or music in those areas as well. There's also need-based scholarships. So that's really kind of what it says. So it's based on your financial need. And a lot of times scholarship sponsors will have you indicate on an application what your financial need is. And a lot of times too, they'll want to know if you've completed the FAFSA application or not. And then they'll make decisions kind of based on that information that you share with them. There are also athletic scholarships, so based on your athletic abilities in many different sports. And one important thing to just note is if that's something that you want to be looking into, then if you haven't already, it's a good idea to be talking with your school counselor, your athletic director, your coaches about that information so that you can find out what you need to know and really get that process going if you haven't already. There are also a number of military aid and military scholarships out there. So just a couple examples there. The U.S. Army National Guard offers some wonderful scholarships for students, as well as ROTC programs in colleges. So ROTC is just Reserve Officer Training Corps. And essentially, colleges and universities across the country, if you join and are in their ROTC program for 4 years, then in return for that, they are going to pay for your tuition, your room and board, your books. So these are great opportunities. And we have several different recruiters, military recruiters at our high schools that are here to help you throughout that process. So just, and you can reach out to Ms. Corbin and I, and we can certainly connect you with those people. So with any of this, you want to start doing those things now so that you can kind of get the information you need and make sure you're meeting deadlines and things. And then finally, financial aid. So this is really just any type of funding that you get to pay for college. So Mrs. Spalding on the call, our GRASP advisor, is going to talk through some really detailed information about that. So I'll let her kind of cover that with us today. And then lastly, we want to point out local and community scholarships. I really, can't stress enough that we have got wonderful people, wonderful organizations in our community, groups that want to give money to you, to our students that are graduating, to, fund for college or different scholarships to help with that. And so we have something, you guys have probably seen our Schoology notices about it, and also in social media about our senior scholarship application. So that is kind of our one way or application for you to fill out so that you can be considered for a lot of these scholarships. And then even outside of that, we post several scholarships out there in our what's called our opportunity spreadsheet, which Ms. Corbin will share in a second, that you can apply through those directly as well. So we're going to share all that information with you, but we just want you to know there are a lot of scholarship opportunities out there, and just make sure you're paying attention to our Schoology notifications and watching social media. So I'm going to let Mrs. Corbin share more with you about scholarships through our Career Counseling Center.
And I know Mrs. Edwards and I hear all the time, where can I find scholarships? Where can I start looking for these scholarships? So on our Career Center website, that is a great place to look for just where everything is housed. So you'll find links to all of these important documents that you need, and also a lot of other quick links to a lot of resources. So if you want to bookmark that website, that's a great way to make sure you know where everything is at all times. Our monthly scholarship listing, the scholarship opportunity spreadsheet Ms. Edwards was talking about, that is where we're going to put any scholarship that we come across. So anything that is sent to us, that's where we're going to add it in with the deadline date and all the requirements so that you know what you need to do to apply for that scholarship. And then the senior scholarship application link, that is something else that you want to make sure you get that done by December 31st by midnight. And that link has been sent out, but here's the bit.ly link again if you need that to bookmark it. And make sure you spend plenty of time on that application, but you're really putting some time and effort into it, because that is what we use in our committee meetings when we're looking at some of our businesses and organizations that offer scholarships. So that is how we're making those types of decisions. So you want to make sure that you spend a lot of time on that application. Also, there's quick links on there to College Board, their opportunity scholarships. That's a great way as you're building your college list, as you're practicing for your SAT, as you're completing the FAFSA, as you're doing all these things you would normally do anyway to get ready for college and to apply for college. You could be putting yourself in the pool for scholarship opportunities through College Board. So that's something you can look into. FastWeb and scholarships.com are some other scholarship databases that you can look through, and there's other ones listed on our site as well that you can look at. Following us on social media, we have a Twitter page, we have Instagram and Facebook, and we are posting resources out there all the time on that, or any important updates. We're always sharing information on that, as well as Schoology. So make sure you're checking those pages for information. Our GRASP advisor, and Mila Spalding is going to be sharing with you in just a minute more about the services that GRASP provides at each high school, and more information about making appointments with your advisor and who that would be at your school. So pay attention to that information. They are a great resource at each of our schools. It can really help you with the financial aid process, with finding scholarships. They're a wonderful resource. Also college-specific scholarships. So looking at the college's specific website and finding out, do they have a deadline that you need to apply by in order to be considered for scholarships? Do they have other scholarship opportunities that require a separate application? So looking more into that information for each school. And also in your community, if you're a member of a church, if you're a member of a club, if you work part-time somewhere, your parents' employment, any bank that your parents belong to, or maybe you belong to, all those places could offer a scholarship opportunity that other people might not even be aware of, but because you're asking about it, you have a leg up on that, okay? So make sure you're asking around about different opportunities as well. Remember, when you're looking for scholarships, if there's a fee, or if it says that you're guaranteed to receive scholarship funds, that could be a scam. So really pay attention to what's the website you're looking at, what is the scholarship, is it legitimate, okay? Make time to really research those scholarships, scholarship databases, make time to apply to them, that's something you want to put on your calendar and really give yourself plenty of time to look at. And as Mrs. Edwards and I have said before, a lot of scholarship opportunities come out in the spring, so more January, February. So make sure you're not forgetting about that and you're really taking the time to do that, okay? Asking for help with reviewing, essays and things for scholarships, just like you would do with your college admissions essay. And also giving your recommenders, if you have someone writing a letter for you, a teacher or a counselor, an employer, that you're giving them plenty of time and notice before your deadline. All right, so I'm gonna let Ms. Spalding take over and talk about GRASP.
All right, thank you, thank you. Good to be online with everybody this morning. Hopefully a lot of you have heard of GRASP, but GRASP, you'll see there, I'm not gonna go through and read everything to you, but I do want you to understand GRASP is a nonprofit. We're not employees of the county, but we are in each high school in Hanover County, all the Richmond area, 70-something schools in the state of Virginia. And we're there to help students and their family with any part of the process for planning your post-secondary education that you would like for us to help you with. Whether it's admissions, whether it's applications. The reality is any GRASP advisor is going to tell you we spend 80 to 90% of our time helping families fill out the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. And we'll talk about that more in a moment. That's the point that a lot of people kind of get bogged down, and it's a very important part to the whole thing, and you don't need to just set it aside and not do it. So we're there for that. I always say we are there. Our job is to make sure parents and seniors aren't losing sleep every night of their lives this year because they think they haven't done something on time, or they left a pot of money someplace that could have been theirs if they'd have just known about it or just met a deadline. You'll see on your screen the advisors at the 5 Hanover high schools, including Georgetown. You will see I have been a GRASP advisor for 30 years. I've been at Patrick Henry the last 15. I'm a Hanover resident. My kids graduated from Patrick Henry. I've been there. I've loved it. It is time for me to retire. And I tried to do that. But given we're navigating whether GRASP advisors being able to do in-person meetings with parents and seniors as well as virtual, I'm probably going to end up being the extra person for all the high schools to utilize if they need to make more time available, whether it's in person or virtual. So you will see that. Don't panic. I know you're all from these various high schools. You can write some of that down. They've all got email addresses. GRASP has set up Google Voice so that they have a phone they can use if they just need to talk with you over a phone line. They are going to be navigating the world we're all living in right now as we can, as Hanover County, lets us know how we can do this, how best to do this, what turns out to be the best for all seniors and their parents, which is going to be different. So we've set up this process. You will be able to email or call these folks directly and ask to set up an appointment. Some of them will start in September. Some may not start until October. It depends on the high school they're in and the situation that's set up for them. So you might want to jot those down. If you haven't, I know this is going to be posted, so you'll see it. If you can't find it, don't worry. Call your counseling department at your high school and say, how do I get in touch with the GRASP rep? I need to make an appointment. They will also be able to share this exact information with you, okay? So here we go. We're ready. Hopefully you've already started. You're not starting the process right now. You've already been thinking about what are you going to do after graduation? Where is that going to be? Lots of dates, lots of different dates. And there really is at this point, the admissions track, which has its own dates, application dates, priority filing dates, all kinds of things. There's also the financial track, which a huge part of is scholarship deadlines, as well as the FAFSA deadline, things like that. And these two do come together. By the time you get to the spring, wherever you've been accepted, you're going to start getting award letters. And that's the point at which all this information comes together on one sheet of paper or one email. And you have to figure out what you're doing. What are you going to accept? What can your family financially do? What are you academically going to be able to do? So they will intersect at a point, but right now you got to make sure you keep up with the deadlines associated with both of these. All right, so how do you start? Okay, so all right, this is the most important thing. Well, the most important thing I'm going to say today is it's a rainy day. Fill out your high school scholarship application today that Ms. Corbin and Ms. Edwards just told you about. I'm telling you, that may be the most important piece of paper you fill out as a Hanover County senior this year. There's a lot of money that go out of high schools in Hanover County on senior awards night. If you, I don't care who you are, what you've done, valedictorian of your class, whatever, if you have not filled out that application, you are not eligible for those scholarships, okay? So do not strap your senior teachers and your counselors and look at them and go, why didn't I get money when you didn't do the very thing you could do today, right, Ms. Corbin, Ms. Edwards? It's live, okay? Do you still have to fill it out completely when you sit down to do it? Is that true? You got to finish it when you start it?
Yes, you do have to finish it when you start it. We've sent out through social media and Schoology a list of items that you should have ready going into it.
Yes, it's not hard to fill out, but you do want to give them as much information as you possibly can. There's no great big essays, you know, a couple of statements, but it's not hard to do, but it is so, so important, and it really helps those scholarship committees. The next most important thing is if you and your parents have not already had a very realistic discussion about how your post-secondary education is going to be paid for, you need to do that, okay? If you're on this morning as a parent, if you are going to talk to your parent, one of the biggest gifts you can give your seniors right now is to make sure they understand how much you can. Maybe that's nothing, maybe it's something. You know, maybe you've got money set aside somewhere, maybe grandma left them, so whatever it is, make sure you have a realistic conversation about what the family is capable of doing financially for them. There are too many tears in my office in May when seniors got in to that school, that dream school they've already bought the t-shirt, the room's decorated the colors, the award letters come, and they don't have the money to do this. Somehow they really thought it would all come together in the end, but it hasn't. And they didn't apply to any other school. They so wanted that one school, that was it. Don't be shocked in May when you find out that loans are yours, not your parents', you know, or you're gonna have to take them, or you're gonna have to go to a bank and get extra loans. Make sure you don't think the financial aid fairies are going to show up at your house and it's just all going to be taken care of, and therefore you only apply to that one school that, you know, that you've always wanted to go to. So please, parents, kids, it's the best gift you can give each other is to now, in August, everybody in the household understand financially how this is going to work, okay? The philosophy of your family, you may have siblings that they've already kind of set up, this is how we pay or don't pay for college. You may be the first one, but they got 2 or 3 to go through. I have parents who say, we have the money, but we want them to have skin in the game. I hear that a lot. And so even though you may feel like your parents, sure, they can do this, not a problem, you know, they may really want you, you know, to have a financial responsibility in this. Don't be shocked by that in May, okay? You know, identifying resources, that's one thing we're helping you do today, you know, so good for you, you're here, okay? A protection plan, that's what I mean by don't apply to just one school. When I fill out financial documents, the FAFSA for students, you know, I fill out a lot for students who are planning to start at a community college for a lot of great academic reasons, financial reasons, location, being able to stay home reasons, things like that. But if I fill out a FAFSA for a student who is only applying to four-year schools, out-of-state schools, I always add a local community college to that FAFSA, because I see too many times when the award letters come, or people lose their jobs. You know, parents have intentions of doing something, but things happened in life, and now it's June and we got to have a different plan. You know, if the local community college, and there's 23 of them in the state of Virginia, you know, our local ones are, of course, are Reynolds and Tyler, so one of them always goes on there, or both. You have an option, and you're not panicking and calling me in July and going, how do I get my FAFSA information to them? They've already got it. You know, you just need to apply. It makes life easier when things change, or when it becomes the very best decision. You just weren't ready to make it in August. So those kinds of things in place help, okay? So everybody's financial need looks different. But there are a few things. Everybody, and I say everybody, really needs to fill out a FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. There's a lot of myths around this document. I've been filling them out for 30 years. They have hugely changed. If your parents say, oh, I filled that out when I went to college, it was a pain, we're not doing that. This is not the FAFSA. This is not the process that your parents filled out 15, 20 years ago, okay? It's not. It's hugely changed. It's a lot easier, but people kind of panic about it because it's financial aid information. And this is where your GRAS reps are very well trained in how to fill out FAFSAs. We fill out hundreds of them a year, literally. We help folks do that. And I wish I had $1 for every time somebody had said to me, well, my neighbor said I'm wasting my time, they didn't get anything. Or my friend at church said they didn't get anything. Or my parents say we don't qualify, we won't get anything. So hear me say, it is impossible to fill out a FAFSA and not qualify for anything. What they mean is they don't qualify for the free money, the Pell Grant money that doesn't have to be paid back. But they may be eligible for work study. Filling out the FAFSA is going to make you eligible for federal student loans. And if a student loan is going to be part of what it takes for you to go to school next year, you do not want to start at your bank, okay? You want to be eligible for federal student loans from an interest rate standpoint. From the way you get it is the easier way to go about it. You definitely want to have access to federal student loans. And let me, your parents today may be saying, we don't want you to take any loans, okay? I don't want anybody to have to take a loan. I don't like having debt either, but it is the reality for the large majority of students, okay? And things do change over time, and all of a sudden you do need it, okay, in there. So do not let anybody talk you out of filling out a FAFSA this year, okay? I'm not going to get into the weeds of FAFSAs and all that kind of stuff today. That's a financial aid night kind of thing. We won't do that, but that's what your GRASP advisor can spend a lot of time doing. Besides the federal funds, your schools in Virginia have access to state funds. That's different at every school. How much they have plus how they're going to dole it out is different, okay? But they're going to use that FAFSA for the most part to determine, are you also eligible for some money that comes through the state of Virginia that does not have to be paid back? It's not loans, okay? Institutional funds, those are the funds that the colleges themselves have. They may use FAFSA, they may use some of the need that FAFSA demonstrates to determine if you're eligible for some of that. You can paint a sad story. You can say, I've got this need. And if they look at you and go, well, we never got your FAFSA results. And you go, well, I never filled one out. They have no idea where to start. They have no idea what your demonstrated need is because they don't have the results of a FAFSA, okay? Private scholarships may require FAFSA. One local example of that is the Community Foundation of Richmond. TCF Richmond has a lot of scholarships they administer for a lot of folks that really want to help students in the Richmond area. They all have a need-based component to them. They may ask you, what is your EFC number, expected family contribution? You do not have that number unless you filled out a FAFSA. They may say, in order to be eligible for this scholarship, are you Pell Grant eligible? You do not know if you're Pell Grant eligible unless you filled out a FAFSA. Am I making my point? Everybody got it here? Fill out your FAFSA, get your GRAS rep to help you do that. It is hugely important, okay? It's never a waste of time, okay? The quickest way is on file. I won't even hand somebody a paper FAFSA anymore. If you do that, the FAFSA has a lot of skip logic in it. If you were to fill out every single question on a FAFSA, I think the last count I saw was 72 or something. Well, nobody's going to answer 72 questions on a FAFSA now because there's a lot of skip logic based on how you answered the questions before. And if you fill out a paper FAFSA, you'll answer all those, you'll put it in the mail, and I don't know, a month or 6 weeks, 8 weeks later, you'll find out what your EFC number is. All right, now, as soon as I hit submit on a FAFSA, I know what a person's EFC number is, okay? It's, 6,000ths of a second, to an EFC number online. Some folks don't have great access to the internet. They're scared to put their financial information online. I get that, it happens. But filling a FAFSA out online is the best way to do that. It's the easiest way for the college to deal with it. It's going to happen a lot faster for you. And if you need to make a correction, which a lot of people have to after they get it, it is the fastest way to make the correction as well. Be sure you always go. You see the website for FAFSA there, .gov, okay? If you start filling out a FAFSA and all of a sudden you get a line that says that'll be $60, you are on the wrong website. The first F in FAFSA is free, okay? Do not pay anybody to fill out a FAFSA for you, okay? It is a free application for federal student aid. I've had students show up in my office in April and go, never filled it out. I couldn't afford the $40, $60, $80 it costs to fill out. Wrong website, .gov, okay? Remember that. Okay, so here is what confuses some folks with FAFSA is the dates. You are going, as next year's freshman college class, you are going to fill out the FAFSA that is for that academic year, your first year in college. When you go to that FAFSA page, you are going to see that the FAFSA for this current academic year that's about to start is still there. Do not fill out the 2021 FAFSA. You want to fill out the one dated for your freshman year in college, 21-22. You cannot fill out a FAFSA today. It's not there yet. But on October 1st, it will go live, okay? And you and your parents are going to use your 2019 income taxes. Okay, you see how the dates get confused, but let me tell you something. These dates are a great gift to you compared to where we were about 5 years ago. This is awesome, okay? You're going to use taxes that hopefully you and your parents have already filled out, okay, and filed, and you've got the results. Because now on a FAFSA, you don't have to sit there and put in every single number like we used to have to do manually for every question. FAFSA's just going to suck those income taxes right into it from the IRS site, okay? You do not have to put every single number in there anymore. So remember which year you want to fill out, 21, 22. You're going to use yours. If you filed taxes in 2019, your parents, if they filed taxes, their 2019 taxes. You are not waiting for their 20 taxes to be done anymore, okay? You can do it as early as October 1st. CSS profile is a different kind of financial aid document. Basically, there are 4 schools in the state of Virginia that use the CSS profile. This is for institutional aid. We are no longer at this point talking about federal or state aid. The schools that use the CSS profile are the schools that have a lot of their own money and they need more information than the FAFSA gives them to determine whether you're eligible for their institutional aid, okay? In the state of Virginia, there's 2 private schools, there's 2 state schools, okay? So the University of Richmond, Washington and Lee, William and Mary, and the University of Virginia, okay? That's basically who require, and when I say requires, if you want to be considered for their institutional aid, it's required. Nobody makes you fill out a FAFSA or a CSS profile, but if you want to be considered for this money, you do have to fill these forms out, okay? The CSS profile is already available to fill out. It requires more information. The biggest example is a FAFSA does not ask what's the value of the home your family lives in. The CSS profile is going to ask, okay? It's more information. Now there's 4 in Virginia, but when you start applying outside the state of Virginia, there's a whole lot of schools across the United States that use the CSS profile. And the way you figure out if the school you are applying to does is just look at their financial aid page on their college website. They're going to give you the link to the FAFSA from their financial aid page, but if they also use the CSS profile, or maybe their own, some schools have their own form that they use. More and more, they're all using the CSS profile, but there's still some there. They're going to list it right on their financial aid page. Okay, so don't miss that. Don't miss whatever deadline they're giving you for that. If some of you or applying, for early admission or whatever, they may want your profile earlier than if you're not. Make sure you're looking at dates. Make sure you're looking at dates for those kinds of things. You'll see GRASP has its own website, grasp4virginia.com. That is, there are resources there for students. There's a whole great big, another one of those spreadsheets full of all kinds of scholarships. GRASP gives its own scholarships. By meeting with your GRASP advisor and being in our database, you then become eligible to apply for the scholarships that come through GRASP. If you don't, you're not, okay? So you do that, to make that appointment, pointed out those names, told you kind of how that works. That's great. The universities you are considering, all have their own financial aid pages, to look at. A lot of schools, including the community colleges, have their own scholarships, okay? But they all got deadlines. They've all got deadlines to meet. Everything has a date associated with it. So don't wait till you get your award letter and go, oh, I didn't get everything I thought I was gonna get. Let me go see if Reynolds has scholarships. Deadline's over, so start looking at that kind of stuff now to make sure you know what you want to do. Okay, so now what can you do right now? Okay, I'm going to say it again. Make sure you and your parents have set the expectation for how is college going to be paid for. Okay, I've had students come back to me, they're $40,000, $60,000, $80,000 in debt, don't know still what they want to major in. Say if they had to do it over again, and had they really realized all that was going to be their debt and how fast it was going to pile up, they would have so tried to get a 2+2 degree from a community college, figured out what they wanted to do, and then transferred where they wanted to go. Virginia has an awesome transfer program and process in place to do that. Take an inventory of, what's currently there, the protection plan, research and apply for scholarships. You've already heard that several times this morning. Fill out, I'm gonna say it again, fill out your high school scholarship form now. Do not wait till December 31st. There's a lot of dates, a lot of deadlines coming up. That's one you can take care of today and not ruin your winter break while you're applying for schools at the last minute and trying to meet deadlines and trying to get a FAFSA done. Get that thing over with. It's hugely important. Can't say it enough. My one goal, I always say when I talk to classes of students, parents, wherever, is to confuse you enough that you have a little bit of knowledge, but you're confused, and you have to make an appointment with your GRASP rep to figure out the rest of it. So don't be overloaded. Don't shut down because you're confused about something, especially the FAFSA. There is a huge resource in every one of your high schools, your GRASP rep. Please do that. Please make that appointment and let us help you. We only show up at Hanover high schools. We only set up emails for high schools and Google voicemails because we want to help seniors at all of those high schools get through this year and sleep well, you and your parents. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to go ahead and move to Reynolds Community College now and hear from their financial aid department.
All right, thank you. So first, I just wanted to share this graph just so you could see the Virginia Community College system costs compared to your average four-year institution. So on this chart, you will see in the blue, this is the cost of the average four-year institution. In the red is the average cost of the Virginia Community College system. And then in the green, that's your savings. So as you can see, this chart stretches all the way back to 2013. And as the years have gone on, you can see that those savings have just increased. So it just kind of puts it all into perspective for us. And then briefly on the next slide, I'm just going to talk through some of the funds that are available at the Virginia Community Colleges. And these are also some that are available at your four-year schools from the federal and state level. So you apply for these simply by doing the FAFSA, as was mentioned before. And I did want to briefly talk about the state funds. So we've talked about filing the FAFSA. Even if you think you're not going to receive anything, I would go a step further, encourage you to file it as early as possible, because especially with some of the state funds, there's limited amounts of money available. So the earlier you file it, the better chance that you stand at receiving some of these state funds. And I just wanted to briefly talk about some of the requirements with the state funds as well. So we have those listed here. For the VGAP, I will address first. Students who come directly to Reynolds or community college out of high school with a 2.5 GPA, as long as students are full-time, so 12 credits a semester, they could receive this VGAP award. So if in your first year you advance to 30 credits that you've passed, your second year you actually get an increase in that award. These other awards, the Commonwealth Award and the part-time award, you can still receive those even if you're less than full-time. So just keep in mind that we do have some funds available for you. And again, just to echo the scholarship application, in addition to the FAFSA, Reynolds has one scholarship application to apply for the many different scholarships that we have available. So if you are considering Reynolds, and we hope you are, our scholarship application for next fall, 2021, that actually opens December 1, 2020. That'll close March 1, 2020. So it takes about 30 minutes to complete. But just in addition to the FAFSA, just keep that in mind, just to put yourself in the running for some extra funds.
And just to piggyback a little bit on what Andrew said, coming to the community college is also a very good way to save some money. And so we do have a sizable number of guaranteed transfer agreements with some of our four-year schools, both private and public. And so those agreements would mean that if you take a curriculum here with us, 2-year program, and then you have a certain GPA, then you can transfer to one of those institutions and save the cost of those first 2 years. Sometimes it can be as much as $20,000. And as you see there, on average, it's about $4,800 per year. So going to the community college or coming to the community college, I would say, is a good way also to save some money. And then we also have some agreements with, like, for us here at Reynolds, VCU. So for any of our students that are trying to go into some of the humanities areas, we have some specific scholarships set up so that while you're here with us, you can get money. If you have agreed to go to VCU in one of those areas, you can get some additional funding for that while you are here, and then that also transfers with you to VCU in those areas.
Thank you. So we're going to hear from Christopher Newport University now, their financial aid department, to talk about public four-year colleges and universities.
Hi, I want to make sure you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Before. Okay, I'm Keely Haynes. I'm the Associate Director at Christopher Newport University. I tried to keep my information a little more broad information about public schools because a lot of what you've already heard is going to apply to us too. Federal aid is going to be at any school you attend as long as they are eligible to give federal aid. And most public schools are. So I'm going to just keep it kind of broad, high level stuff about public schools. So like other schools, public schools are probably going to have a priority FAFSA filing deadline. And so that's where that comes in. It's just so important to submit that as early as possible to make sure you're not missing that deadline. Because if you do, you could be giving up an opportunity for a lot of financial aid. An important thing to note is that schools set their own deadlines. So you want to make sure you're checking with each school you're considering to make sure that you're meeting the deadline for all of them. For example, Christopher Newport University has a preferred deadline of December 15th, and that's just to make sure that you get your aid offers as early as possible if you're an early action or early decision student. That way we can get you your aid more quickly. And we have a priority deadline of March 1st, and so that's going to be for any students. And we'll start sending award letters after those deadlines, depending on your admission status. As has already been touched on, there are differences in costs between community colleges, public schools, and private schools. So you want to make sure you know those costs and you have a plan for your full 4 years. A lot of time people get very focused on just planning for the first year of college, and they forget that this is, a multiple year commitment. So you need to make sure you're thinking about what that's going to look like every year, not just for your first year. And another thing to note in terms of just public schools is we are state funded, so we are not permitted to discount tuition in the way that some private schools are able to. So there's often a lower cost associated with public schools than private schools, but there's also maybe not as much ability to negotiate costs in your aid package. And so you want to be in communication with the schools And that's one thing I'd really impress that I don't think I've heard a lot of so far, is any school you're considering is going to be happy to talk to you about aid opportunities and what things are going to look like for you realistically. We want you to make the best decision for you, and don't be afraid to reach out even if you haven't made your final decision yet, because we can help you understand what things look like for us and make sure you're getting as much aid as possible and understanding what sort of commitment you're looking at as you make those decisions.
Thank you. And is there a scholarship deadline for students applying for scholarships through CNU?
I don't believe so, but I'm not sure off the top of my head. I know some scholarships are part of the admission application, because most of our scholarships are merit-based. So it's going to be, those decisions are going to be made with the admissions application.
Okay, so they're automatically considered for it when they apply.
For many of them, yes, through our presidential leadership program, or where most of our scholarships lie. So if you meet the qualifications for those based on admissions, then you're often considered for those scholarships right away.
Wonderful, thank you. And now U of R is going to talk about their financial aid process.
Hi, yes, I'm Emily Martin from the University of Richmond. And so I'm going to give you an introduction to how the financial aid works at a private school. Private universities like Richmond sometimes come with a sticker shock, but the truth is that many private colleges and universities can be made more affordable once you factor in the merit opportunities and the need-based financial aid offered by these schools. So we've covered most of this information here, but I'll just reiterate, FAFSA, CSS profile, and your federal tax returns from 2 years prior are the 3 core components of a need-based aid application. An important side note is that if parents are divorced or separated, both parents must complete separate CSS profile forms. Again, check with your schools about if they have institutional specific forms, whether that be for a grant or a loan or another type of scholarship that's maybe based on merit. For example, on the slide there, we have the Virginia Tuition Assistance Grant application, which is due July 31st, the summer before you start at university. And VTAG, as it is called, is non-need based. The state sets the amount, and this year we're hoping the governor will stick with $3,520, and so that does fluctuate every year. So just make sure that you meet all your deadlines. For Richmond, our prospective freshmen deadlines are 2 weeks after your admissions application is due, so that gives you a little bit of a breather. But again, the FAFSA and profile open up October 1, so you've got plenty of time to start. And so outside of need-based aid, other financial resources, of course, athletic scholarships, as mentioned earlier, merit-based scholarships. Schools will allocate these in different ways. Usually it is awarded in a student's first year at university. They may have specific deadlines. For example, the Richmond Scholars Program has a deadline for a complete admissions application by December 1. It's typically the admissions office or maybe a faculty committee that are selecting the merit recipients. Other special programs, for example, at Richmond, we have Richmond's Promise to Virginia. This is for Virginia residents whose parental income is $60,000 or less. And for students who meet the criteria, we provide grants that cover the full-time tuition, actual room cost, and standard board. Richmond is not alone in having special financial aid programs. I believe Washington and Lee also has its W&L Promise. And flagship public schools like UVA, William & Mary, also have their own strategic initiatives to make their school's experience more affordable. Again, the Virginia Tuition Assistance Grant, I want to reiterate that it is not based on demonstrated need. So if for some reason your family doesn't file a FAFSA, but you are a Virginia resident, you can still submit the VTAG application by the deadline and be considered for that. Outside of our office, the Student Accounts Office at Richmond and other universities will typically offer an installment payment plan. And this allows families to break down the remaining balance into hopefully more manageable monthly basis, usually 4 to 5 months during the semester. It helps students and families pay for college while lessening the impact of paying all at once. Then of course, the non-need-based loans. These may be from the federal government or private sources. The federal loan would be the Federal Parent Plus loan, which is available to parents of dependent students. You do need to file a FAFSA and a credit check is done. Private loans, all you need to do is a Google search and a plethora of options are going to come to you. So just do your research. You may go into an office, financial aid office, and ask, who do you recommend? But we're not permitted to recommend any loan lenders. So I just encourage families to read the terms and conditions thoroughly. Outside scholarships, I feel like have already been covered very heavily. Just look out for them and talk to family and friends and your parents' employers and your high school guidance counselors. And last but not least, student employment. Typically, it's like at Richmond Federal Work Study or the University Work Program, you may work maybe 10 to 15 hours a week, bi-weekly paychecks, minimum wage, but there are a variety of offices, including financial aid, which is super fun to work in, that will hire student workers. So I think we'll wrap up with some useful tools. You may be interested to know what you may qualify for at a private or a public school. So I encourage families as they're doing their research and making their list of schools to go out to the university's websites and find their net price calculator. Some may also have the My Intuition app. Both are intended to help students get a better understanding of the net cost for each school. The net price calculator is required for schools that administer Title IV aid. And things to consider, it is providing an estimate. It is not a good predictor of merit aid. Some schools may include information on merit possibilities if they ask for maybe an SAT or a GPA. Richmond's calculator does not provide information on merit because it's a faculty committee selecting our Richmond scholars, and the calculator cannot read their minds. And then of course, remember that the output is only as good as the data provided by the family. Again, it's an estimate, but it is a very helpful starting point as you begin to explore how to plan and pay for your college education. So.
Thank you all so much. We really appreciate your expertise and for taking the time to be on this panel today. We're going to take a little bit of time for questions now. So the chat should be open. Is that open, Ms. Edwards?
Yes, the chat is now open. So if you have questions, if you want to put them in there, and we will certainly get to as many as we can today. And remember, this session is being recorded, so you can always watch later as well. And anything that we're not able to get to, certainly ask our GRASP advisors or your GRASP advisors, as well as reaching out to the college's financial aid offices as well. Okay, it looks like we have a couple questions coming in. First question that we have is, why can't we fill out the FAFSA before October 1st with our 2019 tax returns?
It's just not available. It's a government form. It just has an open date of October 1. It used to be January 1, so be happy it is October 1. That was a huge change. We used to fill it out starting in January and had to wait on people to do their taxes or estimate FAFSAs and go back and redo them. October 1 is a gift. It really is. And using your 2019 taxes that have already been done, those were both huge, great, lauded changes in the world of financial aid when they did that. So yes, October 1, it will become available. And like they said, do it early. Do it early. Don't wait to do that, mainly because of the state ramifications of funding, as you've heard several people say today.
Okay, I see another one here related to scholarships. So I know that some school scholarships require a certain SAT score. How is that going to change with limited SAT testing? And just from a scholarship standpoint, we're not seeing a lot of the scholarship applications out there yet. However, I do believe in just working with scholarship donors that they're going to be flexible. I'm certain of that, and I would say they would probably waive that requirement as part of their application, or find workarounds. So I really think we're going to be in that time where people are going to be flexible with those types of things.
And do any of our colleges have any notes about that, about school-specific scholarships where SAT usually is required, or ACT score? Do you know anything about how that might be affected for this year?
I don't know anything about it specifically, but since no one's chiming in, I know that's something for a lot of schools, including Christopher Newport, that's going to be determined likely by the admission office. So I would recommend reaching out to the Office of Admission at whatever schools you're thinking about and asking them about that SAT requirement, because it's often required for admission itself as well. So they'll be able to give you a good look at what considerations are being made, if any.
Great. And I know we've heard from some colleges that, SAT and ACT requirements are being waived for admissions. And so I'm sure they're trying to figure that out as they go. But they will have those answers if you reach out to the schools that you're interested in. Wonderful.
And I think this is another good one. When should we meet with our GRASP advisor?
Yeah, you should go ahead and reach out by email and or voicemail, to them to try to figure out when are they starting their appointments, get on earlier rather than later. The first thing you have to do with a FAFSA is you need to have your FSA ID, which in a lot of cases takes more time to do than to fill out your FAFSA. But it's just how you get that username and password. There is a huge amount of security around that form, just as there are taxes, federal taxes. There's a lot of financial information in there. So they're constantly ramping up that security. And so the FSA ID part of that is huge. That is something, you can do. Your GRASP advisor may tell you to go ahead and do that. I will tell you, if you do that, when you're looking at that screen that has your username and password, take out your phone and take a picture of it. Because so many people write down that information wrong, or they don't write it down as uppercase, lowercase, whatever it is. And if you go to your GRASP advisor and you say, oh, I've already got my FSA ID, you have to have one in one of your parents. If you have a sibling already in school, your parent may already have an FSA ID. But if not, one parent and the student have to have one. And you can get that earlier. But if it does not jive, if it doesn't work when we put it in, we can reset it and we can get there. It's a process. So just be sure you do that. Along that same line, I'd also tell you, I help a lot of students fill out community college applications, specifically Reynolds and Tyler in our area. When you get through with that process, there's several screens that are going to come up. Anything you do online, you're going to end up getting some kind of confirmation code. You're going to get an advisor's name if it's the community college, those things. Take your phone out and take pictures of those rather than writing that down. I find when students try to write things down, it's just harder, and you're going to lose that piece of paper. You're not, that phone is valuable to you. You're going to keep that. So just take a picture of those screens if you're going to do those kinds of things ahead of time. It will greatly help the process when you get to the full thing.
We have another one here. Where can we find the senior scholarship application? So we have sent links to that application out through Schoology to our senior pages, as well as to the community Schoology pages. It's also gone out through eConnect. And also, if you looked on our presentation, the opening slideshow presentation, we have the link in there. And finally, if you go to HCPS main website under career counselors, you'll find the link in there as well. And if you have any trouble finding it, please reach out to Ms. Corbin or myself, and we can certainly direct you.
And we will be sharing the slides from today as well. So if you, all those bit.ly links are right there in the slides, so you can click right on it from that as well.
We have, is FAFSA the only extremely vital thing we need to have done ASAP?
Well, you need ASAP would be October 1. You can't do that right now. I think I heard Emily say, is the CSS profile not going to be available till October 1 this year?
That's usually what we're notified of. Yes, in October.
Okay. In the past, we've been told that's even available in August. So you'll just have to check with your college. You know, colleges can, you know, the CSS profile, they can, you know, add or take away questions or whatever. But yeah, right now it's that high school scholarship, looking for scholarships. Look, if I can't really name a credit union that doesn't have a scholarship. If you are a family member or a member of a credit union, a lot of them have them. You know, a lot of corporations have them. I administer scholarships for some corporations, and you know, there's even scholarships, like I administer the early childhood scholarship for the state of Virginia. You know, if you want to teach preschoolers, the state of Virginia will pay for that. You know, there's things like that out there that you just need to check into. It's just your due diligence checking. You know, like we said, you can sign up for it. Let me say, so things, that whole list like FastWeb, College Board, when you start signing up to safe scholarship search sites, what I have found is ideally seniors are doing that themselves. In a lot of cases, parents are the ones doing it, okay? I suggest you set up an email just for those kinds of sites. So all of those scholarship, all those links come there. If you give all of those, if you give FastWeb, for instance, the email that you deal with every day, and 15 or 20 emails come into your email account on that day, you will drive yourself crazy, okay? And that way, when you have a day, it's a snow day, it's a rain day, it's whatever, and you can just go through those and see which ones of these do I really feel like I ought to apply for, you know, or not. You kind of have all of that in one place and not mixed in with all the other emails that you get. And I know a lot of seniors don't use email a lot. You will when you get to college, so you might want to get used to it, but parents do. And so, you know, it's just a word to the wise, don't drive yourself crazy. Just set up something separate for those things to come to.
Okay, we have time for 2 more questions. The first is, what is a priority status application? I know it gives more scholarship opportunities, but I do not understand the complete purpose of it.
Well, if you're referring to the priority filing deadline for the FAFSA, most schools are going to set one to help them award financial aid that we have limited funds for. So this is often going to be with need-based aid like state aid, because we're given a set amount of money and we have to decide how to award that to students, but we only have so much. So the priority deadline, students that meet that, they get the first consideration for that, and it makes, if you miss that deadline, then you could be missing out on that limited funding that we have for several different types of aid.
Okay, thank you. And then lastly, should we just create one FAFSA ID for me and my siblings?
No, your parent needs one, and your parent can use their ID for every child that's their dependent, okay? Each student has to have their own FSA ID, okay? Hopefully that's clear. So the parent can use the same, and the FSA ID, on every 18 months to 2 years, they will make you reset the password. So, you know, your parent may get that message if they already have one, or if it's been a few years since they used it. They may have used 4 or 5 years ago or more what was called a PIN number. Sometimes when parents log in to do that, they'll get a message saying, oh, it looks like there's already a PIN number associated with you. Do you want us to pull that information over? You can. You may need to update an address or something. You have the option to do that. But the PIN number only associates with that one person. So each student has got to have one, and one parent. You know, your mom and dad don't both need one, just one. And with that, you need to understand, if your parents are separated or divorced, okay, only one of them is going to fill out the FAFSA, okay? It's the one you live with 51% of the time, okay? If all that's fit, there's other rules about that that go down the line. But just so you understand, you know, when we talk about your parents and your income taxes, there are some situations where only one of your parent will do. If your parent has remarried, you know, that step parent becomes part of that FAFSA. You know, if they are legally remarried, that step parent will show. Okay, so those are the kind of questions GRAS reps, college financial aid offices can help you with before you dive into a FAFSA if you're not quite sure. If you've ever been in the foster care system since about the age of 13, whether it was 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, you're still there or whatever, you may be an independent on the FAFSA. You may only list your own income. There are things out like that, and there's a list of dependency questions on the FAFSA that you need to read very carefully, make sure you understand, and if you can check yes to any of those questions, it's only going to be your income, not your parents. So it's things like that that you want to read carefully when you sit down and start trying to fill out a FAFSA, and let your high school counselor, your GRAS rep, college financial, help you understand who exactly is supposed to do this. Sometimes it's, you know, who the family is and the members and the parents that are supposed to fill it out is not quite as crystal clear for some folks as it is others. Okay, but those can make huge differences in the outcome of your FAFSA and what your EFC number becomes.
Okay, well, that wraps up today's session. We want to thank all of our panelists for joining us today. Thank you so much. Thank you to you attendees for being with us. We will be sending out the recorded version of this later this afternoon, along with the link to tomorrow's webinar, which is going to be standardized testing in today's environment. And we're also going to have Virginia Tech on there with us to give some tips related to that as well. So thank you all so much. We hope you have a great day, and we hope to see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. live. Thank you.